Welcome to the Legal Lowdown with attorneys Chris Burrell and Terrell McCants.
Well, hello everybody. This is Chris Burrell.
And I'm Terrell McCants with Burrell and McCants.
And you're with another episode of the Legal Lowdown. This is where we give you the lowdown on all things legal.
And there's a lot going on in the world of law today, so we are here to answer your questions on current and confusing legal matters. You may have seen our 2-Minute Tuesdays where we break down current legal topics. This is an extended version, an interactive version of those segments. You get to ask us questions live.
All right, so a lot of people want to know who we are, and they know we're doing the 2-Minute Tuesdays and we're doing the Legal Lowdown. So what we're basically doing is giving away information for free, and everybody wants to know why we're doing that. Well, the answer is simple. We're doing it because no other law firm is. This is our second show, so before we get too far into it, we want to just take a second to kind of reintroduce ourselves and let everybody know who we are. As I already stated, I'm Chris Burrell. I was born here in Birmingham. I went to West End High School and the University of North Alabama. After that, I started practicing law with the Birmingham School of Law. And I've been in private practice here for the last 10 years or so, or 11 years. This month, it'll be 11 years. I practice primarily criminal defense cases. I also do personal injury and business formation. And turn it over to my partner, Terrell McCants.
I'm Terrell McCants, and I grew up in Pritchard, Alabama, South Alabama, close to Mobile. I went to Birmingham School of Law, first went to University of Alabama, then to Birmingham School of Law. I've been practicing for about 11 years. My practice areas are primarily civil rights, which primarily includes police misconduct, false arrest, excessive force, things like that, as well as employment discrimination. Pass it back over to my partner, Chris.
Cool. All right, so everybody knows that tonight's topic is riding dirty. Okay, so years ago, there was a real popular song by a guy named Chameleonaire, and the song was called Riding Dirty. Everybody remembers that song. They see me hating, they rolling, trying to catch me riding dirty. All right, so what he was talking about was something that's been going on for a long time, but that song by Chameleonaire just kind of brought everything out into the open. Almost as soon as they invented cars, they invented the driver's licenses, and driver's licenses are very important. Cars these days can weigh up to 2,000 pounds, and so it takes people who know what they're doing in order to be on the road. So every state requires people to take and pass a driver's test so that they don't cause accidents or hurt other people. But just like you have to take the driver's test, you also have to continue to use good habits so things like tickets, DUIs, or missed court dates don't cause your driver's license to be suspended or even revoked. And when this happens, if you continue to drive, you may be riding dirty. So today we're going to talk about that topic, and we're also going to give you some practical pointers on how you can make sure that your driver's license doesn't get suspended so that you don't end up riding dirty.
And speaking of licenses, we need to make sure we keep ours. Before we begin with this segment, the folks at the State Bar require us to disclose the following. 1, no representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. Also, the information we express should not be taken as legal advice about your specific case. Lastly, just because we answer a question for you does not mean that we have formed an attorney-client relationship. We do that here in the office through contracts and things like that. Again, we have not formed an attorney-client relationship. Now, let's get to what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely. All right, so today we're talking about driver's licenses. We're talking about riding dirty. It's funny. Actually, just today, I was trying to remember who sung that song, Riding Dirty, and I was looking up Chameleonaire. Do y'all know that he ended up getting arrested for driving with a suspended license?
I did not know
that. He was literally riding dirty. Waylene, can you put that, there's a clip of it when he got arrested. There's a clip of it on YouTube. Waylene, if you can, put that in the link for us. April Fools, y'all. I made all that up. All right, please comedian, please don't sue us, okay? But we had to throw that in there. But just wanted to kind of bring a little humor to it before we get started. All right, so all week long and all the time, people ask us questions about their driver's licenses and things like that. So people have submitted questions to us. There's questions that we often get if here in the office or when we meet people or whatever the case may be. So what we've done is we're taking some of those questions. People are also going to be sending us questions via Facebook. They've been emailing us questions, all of those things. So what we've done is we've taken the most popular questions, and we are going to answer those questions for y'all now.
Okay.
So what's the first question, Terrell?
Okay, the first question, and I'm gonna pose this one to you, Chris. Chris is our resident driver's license expert. So the first question is, I have never had a driver's license, but I was recently pulled over and told my license is suspended. Can they do that? Can they do that, Chris?
The question is absolutely, yes, they can. A lot of times what people don't understand is even if you don't have a driver's license, the state of Alabama, and we'll just use the state of Alabama since that's where we are and that's where most of our clients come from. The state of Alabama can assign you what's called a file number. So whenever we see that somebody has a driver's license that begins with an F, that means that they didn't actually have a driver's license, meaning they didn't pass a driving test, but the state has assigned them a file number and they suspend that. So that way you're in the system. They have to have something to attach to that individual. So they're in the system. So if the police pull them over, the police are instantly going to see not a regular driver's license number, but they'll see a file number. Or it'll literally be F as in Frank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that's how the police know that that person never actually passed a driving test. And then back to the original question, the state can actually suspend that file number. So even if you've never gone down and actually taken the written test and the road test to get a driver's license, your license can be suspended.
That's the information that most people didn't know.
Yeah.
So that was a good question.
Yeah. And there's a popular meme on Facebook, and the guy's doing this, like, they can't suspend it if I don't have one. Yeah, they can, okay?
Yeah, they've already thought of this. Don't try.
Exactly. They've already thought of it.
Okay, so our next question, we have another one about the driver's license. Chris, can my license be suspended if I have a wreck and don't have insurance?
Wow, yeah, this is a big one. All right, so the state of Alabama has a mandatory insurance liability law. So if you have a wreck and you don't have insurance, first and foremost, you can be given a ticket for no insurance, driving without insurance. But secondly, if you are sued as a result of that wreck and the other party gets a judgment against you, either a default judgment or they actually go to court and they get a judgment against you, they can then turn around and use that judgment to suspend your driver's license. So even if you, never had a chance to tell your side of the story or whatever the case may be, because you didn't have insurance, they can end up suspending your license because of that. Now, on the flip side, if you do have insurance, it's very important that if you have an accident, make sure you let your insurance company know. A lot of insurance companies have it in your insurance contract that if you have an accident, that you have to let them know that you were involved in an accident so that they can they may be responsible for paying the damages for that accident. But also a lot of times insurance companies will actually provide lawyers for you. So if you get sued, back to kind of what we were talking about a minute ago, if you get sued as a result of that accident, then your insurance company, they'll be the ones obviously who are on the hook to pay for any damages or any judgments that are against you. So the most important thing is make sure you let your insurance company know that you've had that accident so that they can provide defense and also provide payment for any damage that you may have caused.
Nice. That is really good to know. And I just thought about this as you were talking, but I had an instance where I was able to help someone get their driver's license back. I don't do much of that, but early on I had someone have an accident while it was snowing. There was ice on the road, so there's black ice. And so she skidded into someone else and didn't have insurance. But we made the argument that she wasn't at fault, so it was an act of nature. And there was no negligence on her part. She wasn't driving too fast or anything like that. So we kept going to court, and eventually got her license back for her because they never sued. The insurance company never sued her. So
Gotcha.
you want to be diligent about that. If you are in that unfortunate situation, don't just ignore paperwork that comes to you.
Okay, so you are here helping people get their driver's license back. You trying to take my job? Okay, all right.
That was
Now,
just a one-time thing. I'll pass it.
I got you. Well, that's cool, man. Well, actually, you know what? It's funny that I mentioned that when I'm joking about him trying to take my job, but we actually do different things here at the firm. I handle a lot of the criminal defense cases. Terrell handles a lot of the employment, civil rights cases. He's one of the best employment lawyers that I know. And coincidentally, this next question kind of goes into that. It kind of has a little bit of an employment angle to it. So one of the questions that we received says, can my CDL be suspended if I get a ticket in my personal car? So CDL is a commercial driver's license. That's people who drive buses, trucks, things like that. Can their license be suspended if they get a ticket in their personal car?
Yes, it certainly can. The state can suspend your license if you're in your personal car, depending on the number of infractions that you get. There are multiple levels of infractions that you get when you have a CDL. So if you're getting infractions for speeding, DUIs, things like that, so major infractions, you certainly can have your CDL suspended, which will also stop you from driving a personal vehicle as well.
Yeah. And also, just to kind of piggyback on what Terrell is saying there, the fact of the matter is, if people are operating buses and large tractor trailers and all of those things, we're going to expect that they operate their personal vehicles with a higher level of skill and care. So, with that said, is it possible or is it, I guess, constitutional? Uh, Looking from an employment angle, is it constitutional for them to be held to a different standard of driving just because they have a CDL?
Yes, it is actually. There is no constitutional right to drive. A driver's license, having a driver's license itself is a privilege. So having a CDL is certainly a privilege. It's a privilege that you have to go and actually earn a living with your license. But no one has a right to a license. It's a privilege that the state extends. So there's no constitutional right. So if you abuse or misuse that right, it can and will be taken away from you.
Gotcha. That's good information. That's really good information. Because like I said, we have a lot of people who have CDLs, and for people who have CDLs, that's their livelihood. That's how they make their money.
Mm-hmm.
They can't drive those buses or trains or whatever the case may be if they don't have a valid CDL. So that's good information for them to know. All right. So let's see. I think we got some more questions coming in.
Okay, so let's see what the next question is that we have. Okay, here's a good one. What is the legal limit for alcohol? And what about people under 18?
Okay, so for alcohol, the legal limit is 0.08. All right, and what that means is you can have a couple of drinks, and I'm definitely not encouraging this. Let's be clear. We're not encouraging anybody to drink any alcohol and drive. But there is what's called blood alcohol content, BAC. That's what they measure. So when you see people that take the breathalyzer on the side of the road, or once they get to the police station, they have another machine in which it measures the amount of alcohol that's in a person's system.
Mm-hmm.
That's the legal limit for that is 0.08. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. All right, obviously the level of alcohol goes up from there, but there can be a certain amount of alcohol in your breath already. The breathalyzer test that we talked about before, we have to blow into the device on the side of the road. That measures the amount of alcohol that's in your breath. Things like mouthwash, certain medicines, cough syrup, all of those things have alcohol in them. So don't think that, the legal limit is, you have to be at a 0.00, because basically there are times where that may not be possible. If you may have just, used mouthwash, or if you've taken medicine that has cough syrup, if you've taken like cough syrup or something that has alcohol in it, but the legal limit is 0.08. Now, there are also a couple of other things you need to be aware of. 0.15 is the limit where things kind of start to get crazy. There can be enhanced punishments, for driving with that level of alcohol in your blood system or whatever the case may be. So the legal limit is 0.08, but just know that there's a possibility there'll be some alcohol in your system, but also that the punishments get enhanced for levels above that.
Good information, Chris. Now, and you may have answered this, so forgive me. Now, is there a different blood alcohol level for CDL drivers?
Yes, for people who are driving a commercial a commercial vehicle. So if somebody's driving a truck or whatever the case may be, the legal limit for them is 0.04. So that means that they can have less alcohol, or they have to have less alcohol in their system. All right, so let's give a quick example. If somebody's driving a party bus, something like that, that would be a commercial vehicle. So they may have, taken, 10 people out for a bachelorette party or something like that. But they may have had like a beer while they were waiting for the group to come out or whatever the case may be. If they're operating a commercial vehicle, then they have to have less than, they can't have more than 0.04 alcohol in their system, whereas anybody else who may be driving can have, 0.08. Another thing I don't want to get people to caught up on, I don't want people to get caught up on, is just because you aren't above a 0.08, they can still charge you with alcohol. They can still charge you with the DUI. Remember, the term DUI stands for driving under the influence. So in order to get a conviction, obviously you need to be above a 0.08. But if they can show that the alcohol is influencing you to such a degree that you're unable to safely operate your vehicle, you can still be convicted of a DUI, especially if you go in and try to represent yourself, or unfortunately, if you don't have a good lawyer. So these are the kind of things that people need to know.
Yes, good information. I think we got another question in, and man,
we have a follow-up question from the audience. Lorenza asks, do you have to do the alcohol test?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Really good question.
Yeah, thanks, Lorenzo. We appreciate that question. All right, so Lorenzo's question is, do you have to do the alcohol test? And the answer to that question is no. However, I'm going to say that with a caveat. Alabama has what's called implied consent. And what that means is, if you're driving on the streets of Alabama, it is implied that you're giving your consent to submit to a breath alcohol test or a field sobriety test, as the case may be. So you're not required to do the test. However, there's a charge that comes along with that as well. And it's basically a refusal to blow. So if an officer pulls you over and they try to give you, they give you the field sobriety test and they go through all of those steps, and then they want you to blow so that they can test your blood alcohol level. If you refuse to do so, then you can be charged with refusing to blow. So back to Lorenzo's question, no, you're not required to take the test, but just realize that can be another charge. The good thing about that is, or I'm sorry, not the good thing, but one really kind of nuanced thing about that is, that's where a good lawyer really becomes crucial, because you need a lawyer who can navigate that whole process. If you refuse to blow, then that leads to an automatic suspension. But if you have a good lawyer, then he can likely get that suspension overturned, and he can usually still get you into some type of a pretrial diversion or something like that to keep that off your record.
Okay, one more question from live. John asks, what are the number of infractions that one can have if they possess a CDL and have a wreck in their personal vehicle?
Wow, John, that's a good question. Really good question. CDL drivers, we talked about this earlier. CDL drivers are held to a much higher standard than regular drivers. I don't know specific off the top of my head. I think the infractions is 2, if I'm not mistaken. If it's 2 within a 12-month period, I think that can cause some issues with the CDL. Now, this is actually a good point for me to jump in and kind of give a disclaimer here. A lot of times, as knowledgeable as we may be about our subject areas, a lot of times we still have to go and research things, and that's critical for a lawyer to do. So, like I said, I think off the top of my head that the answer to that question may be 2, but if I'm wrong, that's something I would go and research before we went into court and tried to make that argument, or that's something I would research in order to try to help a CDL driver get their license back. Now, I can say for a regular driver that, Alabama uses a point system, and usually it averages out to about 3 to 4 driving infractions or tickets. It averages out to about 3 to 4 tickets within a 2-year period. But I think for CDL drivers, it may be 2 tickets within a 12-month period. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying about CDL drivers being held to a higher standard.
Yes, Chris is definitely right about that. Ferdy said the last closed book test we took was the bar exam. Everything else we can go to the books on and make sure we know that. And And actually, I found a couple of things on that CDL for John. Serious offenses, excessive speed, 15 miles over the speed limit, and these are for major offenses for CDL holders. That's being under the influence, and these your first conviction or refusal is a 1 year disqualification. It's 3 years if you're transporting hazardous materials. This is per the ALEA website. And the second conviction or refusal is lifetime disqualification. And this one also gets you a lifetime disqualification. And here, be ready to be shocked and amazed. If you use your commercial vehicle in the commission of a felony, lifetime disqualification. You never get a CDL back.
Wow.
Say that one more time for the people in the back.
Yeah.
You will never get your license back if you use it, and you may not get your freedom back either. So be careful.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, you really have to take things seriously, especially, if you're a CDL driver, you have to really kind of be on your P's and Q's just because they are held to that higher standard.
Yes.
And honestly, that's for the good of society. We can't have people driving, 2-ton, 3-ton trucks down the road and, they're not being responsible, with that type of machinery. So those are some really good questions. Thank you, John Lawrence. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching with us. And we really appreciate you for getting involved and asking those questions for us.
Yes. Let's see what's the next question. A lot of DUI questions. Here we go. Okay, what happens if I get a DUI, and what about a second DUI?
All right, so as it relates to DUI cases, the first DUI, you can usually get some type of a pretrial diversion or something along those lines. All right, and just so we're clear on what a pretrial diversion is, a pretrial diversion is where you enter a conditional guilty plea. So you basically tell the court, yes, I'm guilty of this offense. And they may tell you to do alcohol monitoring or, alcohol awareness classes or, community service or whatever the case may be. Now, on the first time DUI, at a minimum, you're looking at a $600 fine and a 6-month suspension. And that's usually on top of the administrative suspension that the state of Alabama will give you. Once you're initially arrested for the DUI, they can do what's called an administrative suspension. That's where you haven't even been found guilty of anything, and that's usually a 45-day suspension. They'll take your driver's license, and you literally will have a gold sheet of paper that you have to ride around with that kind of works as your driver's license. And as you can imagine, it's really not effective because it doesn't have a picture on it. It's not, identification or anything like that. So, you kind of have that issue. But then also, one of the newer things in the last couple of years is something called ignition interlock. And what that means is there's a device that can be placed on your car in which you have to blow into it before you can even start your car. So it literally locks your car from starting until you've actually blown into it to show that device that you don't have any alcohol in your system. So those are the things you can be looking at on the first time DUI. On the second DUI, the punishment goes up from there. So Alabama has what's called a look back period. And so if you get a second DUI within that look back period, your punishment can be enhanced. So on the second DUI, it's typically, I think, a $1,200 fine. And, you can start to get into jail time and things like that. Now, from there, I've had people who have had 5 and 6 DUIs. And, at a certain point, it becomes a felony charge. So those are the things you have to be aware of. Obviously, it's no good for you to continue to get multiple DUIs, especially in this day and time where you got Uber, you got Lyft, you got the old school yellow taxi cabs. There's so many different options for you to get around. I always tell people it's better, safer, and cheaper. If you're going to drink, just drink at home. Get you a couple of beers or, if you enjoy a glass of wine or whatever the case may be, just drink at home. But there's really no point in endangering yourself and especially endangering other people by, drinking out. And it costs more. Let's just be honest about it. There's a huge markup. So if you just got a drink or if you really want to enjoy, alcoholic beverage, which is your right to do, then, just do it at home. That's the safest bet. Then you don't have to worry about first time DUIs, second time DUIs, and all that kind of stuff.
Very, very good advice. Now, Chris, let me ask you this. This is kind of my follow-up for my edification.
Mm-hmm.
What about the person that has the interlock on their car and they have to blow? What stops them from getting their friend that hasn't been drinking to blow? And then,
That's a good question, Toriel. All right, so the thing is, the interlock device, and let me say this: I don't know all the science behind it, but there are different ways that they can measure, who's blowing into the device. Also, there's some random analysis and things that you have to do with that. So, the, like you said a minute ago, they've already thought of that.
yeah.
It's really hard to kind of trick the interlock device. And another thing too is there are a bunch of different interlock companies. So let's be clear about that. We use the term ignition interlock, but that's really just kind of a generic term. There are several different companies that produce those devices, and all of them kind of use a different mechanism. So just know that you don't want to get caught trying to trick that system, because that can lead to additional charges and enhanced punishment.
Yes. And they should probably just get the friend to drive that's blowing.
Exactly. Yeah. If your friend is not drunk and he can drive, I mean, just
If it's not a kid or something.
exactly. Yeah. Don't get him to blow into the device. Just get him to go ahead and just drive.
Okay, let's see. What our next question. Let's see what we got. Okay. So our next question is, I got stopped and had weed in the car. I didn't go to jail, but could this affect my driver's license? Could it?
Absolutely, it could. Now, this is the thing that people need to know. All right, so Alabama, and especially Jefferson County, is in the process now of kind of decriminalizing weed. So people may not be aware of this, but you can get caught with weed and you can literally get a ticket, just like you would get, a traffic ticket. It's not necessarily that you would go to jail, especially if it's a small amount. So officer pulls you over, he smells weed, search the car, and they find weed. They may just literally write you out a traffic citation. And so just because you didn't go to jail doesn't necessarily mean that it's not something that needs to be taken serious. It is still at the least a misdemeanor offense. Okay. So, but as it relates to your driver's license, if you're found guilty of a marijuana marijuana charge, or even a drug paraphernalia charge, each one of those leads to a 6-month suspension. So that's the way that it can affect your driver's license. People may say, well, I didn't go to jail, I'm just going to pay the ticket or whatever the case may be. Well, you got to realize that if you do that, then you're admitting guilt, and that's going to lead to an additional 6-month suspension. So that's how it can affect you.
Great. I think that's good information. I think the questioner got what they needed there.
Yeah.
Stay away from the weed while you're
The weed.
In general, you should stay away from the weed, but especially while you drive. Next question. I got a ticket for going 75 in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. Do I need to worry about my license being suspended? And I think this is one that this is not alcohol, this is not drugs, but
It's just
regular. This is a regular person is just driving. People do this all the time.
Heavy foot, yeah. All right, so 75 and a 50. Let's just do some quick math. That's 25 miles over the speed limit, over the posted speed limit for that area. All right, so in the state of Alabama, you can be charged with reckless driving if you're 15 miles over the speed limit. So obviously 25 is more than that. So if you're 15 miles over the speed limit, you can be charged with reckless driving. So in a situation like this, if someone got a ticket for going 75 and a 50, they're charged with reckless driving. If they're found guilty of that reckless driving, then yes, their license can be suspended for 6 months pursuant to that reckless driving charge.
Very good information for just the casual driver that likes to get places a few seconds faster.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny you mentioned that. I've seen studies, and I've also taken defensive driving classes where, the speed that you may be going over the speed limit, it really does not equate to the amount of time that you think that you're saving. So the most important thing is to always be careful. Now, I'm not going to say, we're all perfect drivers, because clearly we aren't. But you have to really be careful about it. And the most important thing is to leave, one destination, go into the next destination, and give yourself plenty of time. Most of the time, we're going to the same places. We always kind of know how long it takes us to get there. So just go ahead and leave it enough time, factor in the fact that you may have traffic and things like that. But just realize that, speeding is kind of an unnecessary risk sometimes, and it does not necessarily give you the break that you think you're getting. Is it really 6:31? Wow.
It is 6:31.
Time is moving.
It is. That's really good information, Chris. Thanks again for giving us that on the having your license suspended for going 75 in a 50.
All right, so the show was supposed to be 30 minutes, but I mean, we just rolling right along. But we do have one final question here. I don't think we have any more questions on Facebook.
Oh, we do.
Oh, okay.
Lorenza said, I bought a truck with limo tent already on it. Do we have a tent law here in Alabama?
Absolutely. The state of Alabama does have a tent law. Uh, Again, getting back into the science of it, I think it's 0.25. Basically, there's a law that regulates how much light the tent on your vehicle has to be able to let in or let out. I think it's let in. And again, I can't remember exactly what those numbers are, but I think it's like 15%, 25%, 35%, something along those lines. So yes, the state of Alabama does have a tent law, and you got to remember that that's for the safety of not only the driver, but it's also for the safety of law enforcement or people who are outside of that vehicle. So yes, the most important thing is you can actually go to most police stations will have it's called a tent meter. It's basically a device that you can roll your window down a little bit. They'll put it on your window, and they can measure how much light is able to pass through that window. You can take your vehicle to a police station, let them measure it, and then you can find out whether or not the tent that you have is compliant. I recently bought a used truck myself, and it already had tent on it. And I had to, well, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do that same thing. I'm pretty sure that it's already good, but just to be on the safe side and to eliminate the possibility of, police officer pulling me over or anything like that, I'll already know, that it's taken care of. So yes, that's another good question, Lorenzo. And actually,
I think we got one from John.
Yeah, I had a follow-up question about that tent. Does it make a difference if they test the tent at night versus during the day?
All right, so our producer's question is, does it make a difference if they test the tent at night versus during the day? I don't think it does. Like I said, my understanding of the device is it attaches to both sides of the window. It literally has like some little prongs or something on it. I've actually seen it like once or twice, and it has like these little prongs on it, and it measures what's passing through, one side of the window through the other side. So I don't think that it matters whether or not it's done at night or in the day. But thanks for the questions, guys. We really appreciate it. But we got to move on to our next segment. We have another segment called What's Trending. And we always want to be on topic and talk about things that you all are talking about. So right now is an opportunity we just kind of want to talk about what's going on in the media and in the news. So we know that the George Floyd trial is something that is really big right now. And let me first stop and say this: it's not the George Floyd trial, okay? I'm guilty of using that term myself, but the actual name is the Derek Chauvin trial, okay? Yes. Derek Chauvin is the officer who caused George Floyd's death, and he's the one who is charged with second degree and third degree. Well, sorry, second degree and third. He was originally charged with second and third degree murder and second degree manslaughter.
Yes.
So let's get that straight. It's the Derek Chauvin trial, not the George Floyd trial. And of course, we all kind of use slang or misnomers or whatever the case may be. But, want to clarify that. But we wanted to kind of give you a little bit of insight into what's going on with that trial. Now, under Minnesota law, I was about to call him Officer Chauvin, but he is actually fired. Yeah. Under Minnesota law, he's charged with third degree murder, which is causing the death of another human being without intent, but with a depraved mind or without regard for human life. And that stems from the fact that he stood on, he kneeled on George Floyd's back for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I know we've all heard that number, a lot. So that's primarily what this case is about. And then, of course, there's the second degree manslaughter charge, which again, it doesn't imply lethal intent, but the perpetrator created an unreasonable risk. So, Terrell, have you been following this trial a little bit, and kind of like what the defenses are and what they're arguing about right now?
A little bit. I haven't been watching it the whole time because obviously we have work to do while the trial is going on. But the defense is basically for Derek Chauvin is that George Floyd didn't die from asphyxiation or the knee being on his neck. They're claiming that he died from a previous heart condition and drugs in his system. There's only been a few days of testimony, so the trial is not over. So of course this is an emotionally charged trial because we've seen it, we've seen the video, it's been all over the world, but we still have to see how this plays out in court with the evidence that's presented to the jury there in Minnesota.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with that more. But now, like I said before, we're trying to make sure that we get information to the community because other law firms aren't doing things like this. So we're trying to make sure that we get information to the community about topics that are of interest to you, but also we want to make sure that people understand the process. So this is something we'll probably end up coming back to do more segments about, just to kind of make sure that everybody understands what's going on. We're very early into this process. I mean, they've only had testimony for, I guess, about a couple of days or a week now.
Day 4 now.
Yeah, so yeah, we're very early into this process, but as things progress, we want to be here to answer your questions because this is a really hot button issue, and we know people are talking about it, and people want to understand what's going on. All right, so this is a perfect segue to our next segment. All right, and we're getting ready to wrap up here, y'all, but this is a perfect segue to our next segment. So everybody, we know that the topics that we talk about can be kind of heavy sometimes and kind of serious, but we like to have fun. So if y'all are on Facebook a lot like I am, then you know that there's a new game called Culture Tags, and that's where you have to guess clues. You have to guess a saying based on the clues. So we came up with something called Lowdown Tags, and basically what that is we're gonna have different phrases that people that we may have heard or people may have said to us, and we're going to give you all an opportunity to guess what those phrases are. And the winner is going to receive one of these really cool Barilla McCants gift bags. So it has a Barilla McCants mug. It has one of our masks. Has a little stress ball in there. One of these little stress balls. If your boss is getting on your nerves or whatever, you can squeeze on that and kind of, let out your anxiety. And also for any other of our attorney friends who may be watching, I always tell them, when we send them one of these, we say, don't stress over where to send your referrals. We will treat them like stars, okay? So the winner of whoever gets the legal, the lowdown tag is going to get one of these really cool gift bags here. All right, so we're going to put up the graphic. We're going to give y'all 30 seconds to guess what the lowdown tag is, okay? All right, so we're going to start the clock and go ahead and reveal the clue. All right, so this is the clue. GMTTFOTM. That's the clue. All right,
Do we get the category for them?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks, Terrell. All right, the category is money matters, okay? So this is a phrase that somebody may say as it relates to money matters. So what's a clue that you can give them, Terrell, about what this phrase is?
You don't want to hear this if someone owes you money.
Okay. All right, let's see. All right, so we'll say today is the actually it's kind of funny because I almost gave it away. All right, so say for instance if today was early this week was, I think this week started off on March the 29th, okay? So if somebody owed you money and it was March the 29th, they may tell you this phrase, okay? Has anybody guessed it yet? All right.
Tiffany Nicole got it.
Somebody got it. All right, so the answer was, give me to the first of the month. That is too funny. Well, Tiffany, what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask you to inbox us your information.
Tiffany.
Yeah, congratulations. We're gonna send you one of these Barilla McCants gift baskets, and we really appreciate you guys for watching and tuning in. And congrats again to Tiffany for guessing that clue. Well, y'all, that's about all that we have today. We want to thank you all for turning into the Legal Lowdown.
And don't forget to submit your questions and topics for next month to our Facebox info, to the inbox.
Facebox info?
Facebox info, yes. That's a new thing that we invented around here because no other lawyers are doing that either. So look out for the 2-Minute Tuesdays every week, and when we see it, we want to see you live, and tune in the first Thursday of the month for the Legal Lowdown. More Legal Lowdown. That's what you all need in your lives right now.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on that, who else you gonna run with? The truth is us. Okay. I knew you would get that line. All right, so Terrell and I, in our friendship, we always quote Jay-Z lines, and I happened to hear that today, and I was like, okay, I'm going to throw that on Terrell. But anyway, said all that to say, we're going to be doing more cool giveaways with things like this and, more Barilla McCants swag and merch. So we definitely want you all to be in the loop about that. Lastly, and most importantly, if you want to talk to us more specifically about your own case, you can always give us a call here at the office at 205-202-5599. Well, this has once again been another episode of the Legal Lowdown, where you have questions, we have answers, and we give you the lowdown on all things legal. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Good night.
If you have a question you would like answered live, or a topic you would like us to discuss, like us at Burrow McCants and send us a message. If you would like to schedule a consultation, give us a call at 205-202-5599.